My goal was to record a solo album at the cabin by the lake. Certainly not the first musician to do this. Google cabin fever and see for yourself. The cabin was built by my great-grandfather. It has remained in the family ever since. Naturally, it's been spruced up over the years. It now has running water, a high-powered generator for electricity, plus an indoor toilet. A recent addition after a bat got tangled in my ex-wife's hair while she was having a tinkle. Which leads me to why I came out here in the first place. In the middle of NORA'Sville, Ontario, in the cold of early spring. My marriage ended 2 weeks before Christmas. My wife dumped me, and she made off with her younger and more handsome coworker, Carl. I hate Carl. But I digress. Needless to say, I was at a crossroads. Thus, I started writing songs. Once I scratched out the first couple songs, the floodgates opened and the rest followed accordingly. By the end of January, I had composed enough songs for a solo acoustic album. I promised myself I wouldn't call the album Cabin Fever. I brought 2 acoustic guitars, my Gibson J100 and a vintage Harmony circa 1960, which I used for open tuning and slide guitar. I also brought some hand drums and shakers, a plethora of high-quality microphones, and my laptop, plus a bottle of single malt scotch and plenty of grub. It's a 3.5-hour drive straight north. The cabin is so far off the beaten path that not even Google knows of its existence. I've done this drive more times than I can count, and it's never easy. I got lost on my way up, and not for the first time. Eventually, after doubling back, I found the correct side road and made it just before sunset. Not a good way to start. And things were about to get worse. The cabin was eerily quiet. Darkness was impending. So I quickly got to work. First, I lit the kerosene lanterns, then I started the generator and checked to see if the toilet was working. It was. There was enough chopped wood and kindling to last all week if needed. I fired up the wood stove, the cabin warmed up wonderfully. Then I unloaded my gear and put the food away. Finally, I could relax. I sighed as my buttocks hit the familiar feel of the old leather couch. A lifetime of memories surrounding me. Mom's rocking chair cradled in the corner. Dad's Remington hanging dutifully on the adjacent wall next to the mounted antlers. The collection of family photos on the mantelpiece, including a picture of me with my beloved grandmother, taken at this very cabin, and a wedding photo of my ex-wife in her stunning gown, somewhere off the coast of St. Lucia. I rested my feet on the coffee table and sipped my drink, trying not to tear up. Unfortunately, my mind scurried down the wrong rabbit hole, and I was lured into a deep depression. My life was in shambles. This was rock bottom. Filled with grief, I found solace in the bottle. Until sleep took me under its spell. Day 1. I woke to strange noises. What the heck is that? I rubbed my eyes. My mouth was as dry as a musician's sense of humor. My head hurt. I needed water and Tylenol pronto. I'm too old for this, I reminded myself. No more booze, I promised. I had an album to record. I made a hearty breakfast of bacon and eggs and strong coffee. I ate ravenously. All the while, the scraping noises continued, coming from the lake. This cabin was built on a peninsula. It's completely surrounded by water and tall trees. This type of solitude can induce claustrophobia and/or agoraphobia in certain individuals. This cabin certainly has a dark history in that regard. My grandmother committed suicide back here in the 80s. It's tragic. She, too, was a musician. I should check that out, I grumbled, while groping my coffee mug. Better grab the gun on the way out, just in case. As always, the view was stunning. Soft morning sun sparkled over tops of trees, which provided plenty of shade in the afternoon. The deck is cozy with enough room to sit and read a paperback while enjoying the generous backdrop. Beyond the deck lurks McNamee Lake. With squinted eyes, I scan the Ashen Lake. Aside from the blustering breeze sweeping up pieces of icy snow and the gaggle of Canadian geese bobbing about their business, the lake was deserted. The sound sent chills up my spine, as if warning me not to stick around for the week. When I retreated to the safety of the cabin, the sound followed after me. Then it hit me. The lake ice was rubbing against itself. It's thawing. This is normal. Lakes do that this time of year. Should be obvious. I shrugged my paranoia off as jitters. I was in solitude with no internet, surrounded by a lake making strange noises. I'll get over it. Time to get to work. Having set up shop in the living room, I placed a microphone in close proximity to my guitar. 3 more in various spots around the cabin, including one strategically placed on the ceiling, hoping to capture the full spectrum of sound. I placed the vocal mic in front of me and tuned the guitars, ready to roll. With the instruments and recording equipment in check, I went about setting up the cameras. My iPhone provided a close-up of my guitar work while my GoPro captured the full performance, as well as the ambience of the rustic cottage. Slow going at first, my fingers were clumsy, my voice lacking confidence. Couldn't find my groove. It's not every day one finds themselves alone in a 100-year-old log cabin, encapsulated by a creaky lake. My voice and my fingers needed time to warm up. By the 3rd cup of coffee, things started to improve. It was tiresome, but by the end of the day, I managed to record 3 songs. Hard Luck and Trouble, Country Livin', Whiskey Drinkin', and a spiteful little number called So Long to Know You. Nightfall came. After enjoying a steak dinner and some scotch, I retired to the couch. So far, so good. Day 2. I awoke with a terrible sweat, shaking. Nightmares dissolved in my mind like ice cubes slipping into a cool drink on a warm day. I forced myself out of bed, urinated, and went straight for the coffee maker. Coffee in hand, I meandered to the deck, ready to relax and have a cup. And before I could settle into the lawn chair, however, something weird happened. A brisk breeze brushed the back of my neck, sending a searing shot coursing through my body and spilling my coffee in the process. What the? Something whizzed past me. I wasn't alone. I went for my gun and didn't dawdle. And I searched the premises, gun in hand, looking for any intruders. It's a small plot of land. It didn't take long. The snow on the ground had recently melted, and in its place came a mixture of cranky mud and slippery slosh. Chomping along the cold, sodden soil made me miserable. My feet were soaked. And then I noticed the track marks. The tracks were unlike any I'd seen. Long, curvy claws, the tip cut deep and wide, bear-like. Twice as large, spaced further apart, judging from the depth of them. The thing was gargantuan. I scratched my head. Something about the track marks seemed wrong. I returned to the cabin and fetched my phone. I wanted to document them, so when I'm back in Wi-Fi, I can search them up. Problem was, when I returned, the tracks were gone. I was bewildered. This was a different version of outside. Moments ago, the morning was full of birdsong, not anymore. I rubbed my eyes in disbelief. I gotta get out of here, I said, not trusting the sound of my own voice. Don't be ridiculous, I answered. I just got here. I was right. I marched back inside the cabin, put the gun back in its rightful spot on the wall. I poured myself a fresh cup and drank my coffee in quiet desperation. Something wasn't right. The air in the cabin was too thick, the silence was deafening. I nearly forgot my true purpose for coming here. My eyes glanced at the old Winchester next to the antlers and remained there for an uncomfortable length of time. Too weary to eat, I unlatched my acoustic guitar case and pulled out my Gibson, placing it neatly on the stand. When I opened the other case, it was empty. I panicked. That old Harmony was irreplaceable. I ran outside, gun in hand, murder in mind, but of course, nothing was out there. I fled to the cabin, ready to give up and go home, and to my surprise, my old Harmony was sitting on the stand next to the Gibson, gleaming. Impossible. Had it always been there? With shaky hands, I strummed a chord. It was in tune. Reluctantly, I fired up the laptop and went to work. The first song I recorded was a Delta Blues number called Hammer Song, both a tribute to Hammertown, Ontario, as well as a nod to American folk legend John Henry. The song came out swimmingly. I tried my hand at it again, but nothing beat that first take. The blues licks were ferocious, the vocals drenched in gut-wrenching soul. I was pleased. So much so that I had awoken my appetite. I plundered through some bacon and eggs, then I made a rough mix of the song. It needed something special, so I added some shakers and a djembe for support. That's when I noticed the applause. At first I thought it was percussion, but upon further review it was more than that. Underneath my voice and guitar was an actual audience. For real. They were clapping along, cheering sporadically, even catcalling from time to time. I pulled up the files from my laptop, looking for visual clues as to where the sound was coming from, but found none. Instead, my laptop slammed shut. I leapt out of the chair, screaming in surprise. "Who's in here?" I shouted. "Show yourself." Someone was in the cabin. It was undeniable at this point. "Do you want me to leave?" I regretted asking this. Truth be told, I wanted to stay. I had work to do, not to mention my grand finale. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath, and I grabbed the Gibson and strummed an open G chord. It sounded like an ocean. I restarted my computer, pressed record, then began picking through a tune called Sorry Again, a sappy fingerstyle song I wrote shortly after my marriage ended. Again, I nailed it on the first take. As I finished the final chord, I was surprised to see the glow of the setting sun peeking through the adjacent window. I checked the time. 7:51 p.m. That's not right, I told myself, but it was. Apparently time was not on my side. The day was spent in hours, but the music was effortless. After blending the guitar with the vocals, I pressed play and was immediately awestruck. My voice was divine, my guitar an orchestra. That said, I didn't know what to make of the voices. With the volume turned up on the headphones, you could hear them chattering amongst themselves at the quiet parts, singing along to their favorite parts. Judging from the recording, you'd think I was performing to a live audience. "At least they're applauding," I said in a wobbly voice. I'd hate to see what would happen if they were displeased. By now it was pushing 11 p.m., as ludicrous as that was. I made some canned ravioli and washed it down with a single malt scotch. Just a little, I reminded myself. No more hangovers. I added another log to the fire, and then I slipped into a deep and troublesome sleep. Day 3. Something startled me awake, a noise coming from outside. I've been having a nightmare. In it, I was being chased through the woods by a grisly monster. Bizarrely, the monster was singing. But I didn't recognize the song, nor did I understand the words. Those sinister-sounding syllables, however, stayed with me as I stooped over the couch, scared shitless. After emptying my bladder, I grabbed the gun and grumbled outside. The air was basement damp and chilled me to the bone. A copse of soggy black spruces bordered the semi-frozen lake, the leaves ridding themselves of last night's rainfall. To my horror, those inhuman claw marks emerged from the lake, making great strides, leading to the back of the cabin. I cocked the gun and sprinted around the deck, fully expecting a confrontation. The deck was empty, save for a paperback resting on a crooked lawn chair with coffee stains dripping down its side. The lake cranked out a creepy sound, startling me. Then something nuzzled the nape of my neck. "I gotta get out of here," I snapped. I rushed inside and began the daunting task of packing up. Yet, as I was putting my guitars away, something prevented me from doing so. I couldn't bring myself to leave. Instead, I re-listened to the work I'd done on day 1. The songs were extraordinary. That said, the auspicious audience was impossible to ignore. I was suddenly furious. Someone or something was hijacking the mixes. My mind jumped to many conclusions, each scarier than the last. Ultimately, I shrugged it off. What choice did I have? I tuned up the old harmony and cut the sixth song. A blues number using dadgad tuning called Fell in Mud. This was my most difficult song to play. Originally, my plan was to record the guitar first, then overdub the vocals afterwards, but I decided against it. Instead, I recorded it in one take. Unbelievable. I was stunned by my own performance. My voice was gnarly, full of emotion. My finger-picking precise and with purpose. And the audience filled in the quiet bits. The idea that I wasn't alone was indeed freaking me out, but the results spoke for themselves. And so with butterflies swirling in the pit of my stomach, I reached for my Gibson, flat pick in hand, looking to keep the momentum going. I tuned up, then pressed record. I strummed a G7 sus chord, letting it sustain, then I leaned the opening riff of The Devil I Know. Someone spoke my name. I jumped from my seat. My blood went cold. I hate being interrupted. "Who's there?" I spat. My voice fell to the floor with a thud. I knew it wasn't there, but the allure of my tobacco-burst Gibson guitar was irresistible. I sat back down, took a deep breath, hit record. Sure enough, just as I started the riff, a voice spoke inside my headphones. This time I kept playing. Although my hands were shaky, I managed to complete the song. It wasn't perfect, so I did another take. Then another. With each take, I was bombarded with bellows and hollers from the omnipresent audience. After 9 tries, I finally got it. Wearily, I mixed the vocals with the blended guitars until I produced a pleasing sound. Upon playback, those spectators were as pesky as ever. "I'll have to fix that when I get home," I said, stone cold terrified. Having eaten dinner and tidied up, I loaded some wood into the stove before collapsing into the couch. I was spent. Darkness engulfed me. The walls were closing in, the air was difficult to breathe. Panic turned to despair. Would anyone notice if I disappeared? Would anyone care? No. I was insignificant. The world would go on without me, as if I'd never existed. The wretchedness of my personal life came flooding back. All the while, my eyes fixated on the shotgun on the wall. "You came here to kill yourself," I reminded myself. I nodded. My plan was to go out with a bang. I'll make my final record a masterpiece the world would remember me by. Place the barrel of the shotgun in my mouth and blow my brains to smithereens, Cobain style. "You're not going to chicken out, are you?" I asked. I shook my head. "Good. Stick to the plan." Footsteps startled me. They were approaching at an alarming speed, crunching through the crisp foliage, stomping outside the cabin door. My stomach turned over. I stifled a scream. Carefully, I tiptoed towards the gun and removed it from the rack. Whoever's behind that door better start praying. "Who's there?" I asked. At first, nothing happened. And then I heard the scream. Then I heard the voice of a woman. "Lucas," she whispered from all around me. I stumbled backwards as if drunk. I regained my composure and pointed the gun at the door. "Identify yourself or I'll blow you straight to hell." I gripped the gun with cold certainty. I was going to kill something. The voice whispered again, this time more forcefully. Lucas. I know my own name. Something crashed outside the door, and that was all it took. Bang! A shotgun blast took a huge chunk of the door with it. Peeked outside, nobody was there. Nor were there any track marks, just mud and trees and lake. The moon was precarious. A lone wolf cried out, shattering the silence. The loneliness of the howling wolf made me weep. I must be losing it, I said, wiping the stream of fresh tears from my face. I shook my head. It's not true. I had already lost it. It's what brought me out here in the first place. I regarded my decimated door with utter disdain and shivered. The bitter breeze wafting into the cabin was unwelcoming. And without a second thought, I fetched some tarpaulin and duct tape from the shed and went to work patching the door. It took the better part of an hour, but I did the trick. Fatigue held me in its tiresome grip. Meanwhile, my ears continued their incessant ringing from the weapon's disorderly discharge. I sprawled out on the couch, and for the first time since arriving, I slept soundly. Day 4. I woke up well-rested, ready to roll. A speckle of pale light sprinkled in the cabin, as did a newfound sense of purpose. Nothing was going to stop me from completing this album. If I really push myself, I told myself while loading the coffee maker, I could finish the album today. This was true, but I'd have to go hard. I could mix the rest of the songs at home. I opened my laptop, ready to get started, and was surprised by a crimson face flashing across the screen. Its primordial eyes sunk deep into its cheekbones. Toothy snarl made me cringe. The laptop gurgled and then went blank. Suddenly I was frozen with fear, my eyes darting towards the shotgun. You haven't lost the nerve, have you? I asked myself in a chilling voice. I shook my head and forced my attention away from the gun, and instead warmed my hands over the wood stove. My guitar case opened itself. Apparently I should get back to work. The feeling that I was under a spell was irrefutable. I strummed an E chord. The sound filled the cabin with rich overtones. As though in a dream, I leaned into the next song. Eyes on You, a weepy ballad about how I met my ex-wife. Halfway through the tune, I felt something tugging forcefully at my leg. I sprung from my chair in surprise, ruining the take. I swore under my breath and I started up again. Although the entire performance was fraught with stabs and jabs from the invisible bystander, with an endless choir singing along with each chorus, I crushed it. Without a second thought, I placed my capo on the 7th fret and found my thumb pick. Then I ran through a fingerstyle blues with the gospel twist called After the Rain. It would prove to be another first taker. I was on a roll. The afternoon flew by like a midsummer's dream, and as the evening sun descended across the marmalade sky and the cascade of stars illuminated the world above me, I finished my album. Soon afterwards I slept, and was feasted upon by an endless cycle of nightmares. Day 5. Morning light. Day 5. Morning filled the cabin with light. As the memories of dreamlike monsters faded, I forced myself off the couch. The laptop came alive. That devilish face was speaking in tongues directly into my head, flashing on and off the screen full of furious rage. I jumped so high that I cracked my head on the ceiling, biting my tongue in the process. In a frenzy, I slammed the laptop shut and started packing up. I spent the remainder of the day building a new cabin door. The shed had the appropriate tools, and lumber was not in short supply. It was a daunting task, but I didn't mind. It kept my mind off the spirits prowling about. Before leaving, I snapped a pic of the cabin, with my guitars leaning against it. My beat-to-death harmony rested at the foot of the newly built log door. My Gibson next to it, bursting with brilliance. A beam of radiant light spilled onto the guitars, giving them an angelic appearance. This would prove to be the album cover. I made it home by 9. With me came a new resolution. A reason to stick around a wee bit longer. I wanted to show off my new songs. I sent my recordings to the record company, who were over the moon. They thought the audience was a clever touch. I emailed the album art telling them to edit it to their liking, and then using the footage from my iPhone and GoPro, I made a video for Hammer Song. I gave the video a grainy tinge for ambiance, blending close-up guitar bits with the full cabin experience. The dancing orbs in the background were barely noticeable. As I was uploading the video onto YouTube, an email arrived. It was from the record company. "Great stuff, Lucas. Here's the finished album cover. Hope you like it. We certainly do. Big things ahead." When I saw the album cover, I nearly died. They had cropped the pic and boosted the color, making the details much more intense. What first caught my attention was the name of the album, printed in simple lettering just below my name. Cabin Fever. Before I could wrap my mind around this anomaly, something else caught my eye. There was a face peering out from the crook of the window, transparent as though photoshopped. The face was eerily familiar. I zoomed in and gasped. "This makes no sense," I muttered under my breath. But then again, it made perfect sense. It was my grandmother. Alright, so this story was written by a fantastic author named Marcus Starr. You can find more of their work on Reddit under their profile Call Me Starr with 2 R's. You can also find their book on Amazon. There's a recent book out by them titled NORA'S Curse. I actually had the pleasure of reading this before it was released, and it's definitely worth a read. It's a really interesting book. Really cool characters, very funny. It's got scary moments, and just unlike anything I've ever read before. There's actually like songs in between certain chapters, and it's from the perspective of a songwriter similar to this story. So if you enjoyed this particular short story and you want to read more things like this, please check out Call Me Starr in the description down below, and check out their novel on Amazon, which I'll also link in the description down below. Thanks everybody for listening. Please like, subscribe, and check out the next video, which I'll link in the top right corner here. Have a great night.